We are looking forward our way. We're in Studio C in the 511 studios. Hi, this is Brett. With me is Carol, as always. How are you?
I am good, Brett, and we have a surprise for our listeners.
I guess so.
Yes. Stick with us here, folks. We've had an incredible year creating and implementing Looking Forward Our Way podcast.
And we thought we would take a look in the rearview mirror, as it were, kind of look at the year and give you a little bit insight of what we got accomplished, why we do the podcast, how much fun we had doing the podcast, and some highlights, I guess you could say, of what we did this past year, and kind of re-look at what we did. And we came up with some questions we wanted to ask each other about what we liked about this past year, maybe 18 months or so. And some of those questions were, first of all, which episode was the most fun to do? What's your answer?
Well, the big joke we've had over the past year and a half is that I bring in all my friends. and so
True.
Brett and I have this invisible chalkboard saying who has more friends on as guests, and I think I'm winning. So what has been fun is our programs like my friend Darlene, who's in Phoenix, and having an opportunity to really talk about what she does as a consultant for small businesses, because we hadn't really been in contact for a long time. Right. So that was great fun. Or programs like on telehealth with my nurse practitioner, who I think is just wonderful, Stacey Kelly, who's with Ohio State. Really, they've all been great and fun, but the ones that I'm able to really connect with people I don't see on a regular basis has been terrific.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's not really an episode, but it's where we go. I love being on the road.
Yes.
I think recording in those scenarios where we were in Dayton, at Otterbein, lots of different places that I think just like being in a different. I love being in the studio, but it's fun to be on the road occasionally,
right?
Because you come to them and you're in their house, quote unquote.
Yes.
And
we were in Lancaster.
Yeah,
we were
exactly.
at Fairfield County Meals on Wheels, and we were in their house.
Yeah, so I think it's
Dayton,
fun.
We've been all around the state.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the most fun is when we're on the road, because it changes it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, the episode that was hardest to prepare for, what do you think?
People we know.
I do too.
Yeah.
The people that we kind of know, it's just easier to do.
Well, and two, when I now kind of thinking back, I loved the programs we did on arts in the pandemic. Mm-hmm. My friend Gina from Chicago and Martha, who had been a volunteer for me for many, many years, and both are good friends. But then we were also working with the faculty at Otterbein's theater department and Professor Gherkin, so somebody I didn't know who was just delightful, but it was also a topic that I didn't have much background in.
All right. And I guess I enjoyed the ones that we didn't know them all that well, because you got to know them better.
Right.
So it's one of those you walked away with, like, oh, I have a new friend now kind of feel to it.
But they're hard to prepare for when it's a topic you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We kind of a qualifier when Brett and I were podcasting in our previous life, it was all about employment, and that's my expertise. Mm-hmm. So I always felt like I kind of knew where things were going. Well, we've greatly expanded the topics. And so I'm learning, this is my mental exercise every day, is to do the research on, for the podcast.
Yeah. Which one had the greatest impact on you?
Morpsey, because I love talking about the Hyperloop,
right. Yeah, sure.
and the train that's going to get me to Gina in Chicago.
There you go. For me, it was probably the one with elder law attorney Lorraine Schrader. I think that it really made you think and realize what you haven't done so far as I get your stuff together. So, and in fact, it's so much so that my wife and I are speaking and talking and working with Lorraine. Because of that, because we've been kicking that can down the road, and it's just like, okay, there are too many things undone that we need to get done.
Well, and nobody
had that kind of effect on me.
Yeah, and nobody wants to talk about wills because you're talking about end of life.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. What did we learn about making the podcast program over the past 12 to 18 months? Taking a look back.
Well, thank God you do the technology.
Well, I think shared responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is key, that if you have a co-host or working with someone on a podcast, make sure that everyone knows their lane, but be flexible enough that if you can take up the slack if something happens. But we've divided and conquered what we need to do this podcast, and it works really, really well. What you do, I'm glad you do, because I can do it, but I would not do it in a timely fashion. Let's put it that way. And what I take care of, I'd take care of.
Right.
And do it timely. So I think it's just really be honest with yourselves about what you want to do and what you can do, and make sure everything gets done.
Too, I think in terms of me personally and learning, we did a podcast program before, but this is a whole new ballgame because we were doing it early on and sort of experimenting. And as I said, it was only, it was pretty much one topic. But when I went into my semi-retirement, I said I wanted to continue learning something new every day. So not just learning the topics, but learning the industry has been an incredible opportunity for me.
Yeah, because it's so young, things change every month. Little by little, by little, and you learn, it's like, oh, hey, we can start doing that now if we want to, sort of thing. Even the technology and the software around this industry changes, that it opens up opportunities we didn't realize.
Well, and I may not be pushing the buttons on those machines, but I kind of know what they're doing.
Right, exactly. Around this podcast, we created a newsletter. We have social media. I think the one thing that we did get and have gotten great feedback on is we create what we call an assets package for our guests, that what we put together for every episode, we offer them when it's published, meaning artwork, links to the podcast, all sorts of stuff that can help them promote the episode that they're on one link.
Right.
So they click the link and there is all the information that they need to help them or their team that helps promote their business or organization. It's there for them to use, and they don't have to go hunt for certain things. We got really good feedback on that actually we may be one of the few podcasts that they've ever dealt with that does this sort of thing. So I think it really elevated them in their eyes. I
mean, yeah, we keep trying to make this a win for our guests as well as for ourselves, and that's certainly one way that we've been able to do that.
Yeah. You brought up a good point as we were talking about what to cover, is that when we revamped this podcast, that we kind of started all over.
Yeah, we did.
With an audience. We didn't have an audience.
Right.
The previous podcast had been on hold for a little while. So, when you don't publish new episodes, the audience starts to go away.
Right.
Or they unsubscribe or unfollow. So we had to kind of build it from scratch.
Right.
Especially we were going, as you mentioned earlier, way beyond employment.
Well, and if we didn't get the previous audience to listen to us at least once and recognize our voices, there wasn't a real direct connect. Those folks were there because employment was an issue, and employment is only an issue with us, one every few episodes. So it's we had to make sure that they were still interested in hearing us talk.
Yeah, and from the outset too, and our next question or next thing that we learned is we started off with a structure. We were pretty much in stone on that one, that we need to know what we're doing, how we're going to do it. Flexible though, but know that this is how we're going to do this. We're going to publish 2 times a month. Well, when are they going to come out?
Right.
So we have a structure on when they do, that we know that we can be flexible within that structure, but we do know every month this is what's going to happen.
You could tell that both Brett and I are type A personalities.
Right.
We have to have it all down in front of us to maintain
deadlines, goals.
Right.
Otherwise, it doesn't get done. You push it off to which not to say that we didn't push some things to the last minute. But it got done because we knew we had to be respectful of you, the listener.
Right. And our guests.
And the guests.
Right.
We said it was going to happen, and we're going to make it happen.
Well, and I think, too, that we decided that we had a good reputation with our first program. We wanted to maintain that. Your background coming from radio, the whole structure of programming and disseminating that information, radio one way, podcasting, electronically. But we were really trying to create a professional show, and these are all the bits and pieces that are required for that.
Yeah. We were and are able to be adventurous. I think we do a lot of experimenting. We aren't dead set on what topics we're going to cover. We want to try to incorporate them in about 4 or 5 topics that we think about, but that doesn't mean we're not open to, let's talk about this.
Right.
Where can this lead to that still addresses a topic that would be interesting for somebody over 50?
Right. Well, and I think we've been really, really lucky. We must be being adventurous, but on the right track, because for the most part, every time we ask somebody to be a guest, they say yes.
Yeah. Right. And that's the next point. I think that interview format is a win for us. We get to learn. We've learned so much.
Oh, yeah.
Every
Absolutely.
episode,
Absolutely.
we think we know going in. Yeah, we know some about it, but then all of a sudden they bring up things during that interview. It's like, whoa, didn't know that.
Right.
That's interesting. And we want it to be a win-win because we are looking at it from the perspective of that we're learning. We hope that you as a listener is learning. We hope that the guest here at the table sees this as an opportunity to showcase their knowledge, their expertise, and that they can share it as well too.
Well, and especially for the audience. I mean, nobody wants to sit here and just listen to us talk.
No.
Go ramble on and on and on.
No.
And so, I think part of the purpose, part of the structure that we were trying to create was not just to have a podcast, but to have a podcast program that was going to give back to our community. And we do that by bringing in our expert guests.
Well, and I think we would run out of topics to talk about if it was just about you and me.
Oh, yeah.
We know things about certain things, and we could talk about them for a long time, but it would be very boring for the listener to hear that
Right.
over and over and over again. And we're committed to doing this. Yay for us, we never missed a posting day.
No, we didn't. We actually created additional posting dates.
Yeah, we did. Exactly. We had very few scheduling issues, never missed a recording time. The one thing that we, are very cognizant of and are wary of is that we make sure we don't record too far in advance. And
Right.
kind of giving you inside the weeds. We do record episodes way in advance, meaning that episode that you hear coming up was not recorded just days before.
Right.
It could have been a week, so a few months. But again, we were respective of our guest timetable that we could maybe only get in front of them at a certain point in time. And we had to record then.
And also to respect our listeners if they are expecting to hear and know that we're dropping 2 programs a month. We wanted to make sure we had those programs.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes finding guests is easy. Sometimes pretty difficult. And there are topics that we would love to cover. We just can't find somebody to talk about.
Right.
Or on the reverse, we had topics that we wanted to cover, and we finally found somebody that we were confident would cover what we needed to cover. One, as I mentioned earlier, elder law attorney.
Right.
There aren't a lot of them. And we just didn't want to let's find somebody because we want to cover this topic.
Yeah, we didn't want an ambulance chaser.
We didn't. And I knew Lorraine from a couple of other podcast episodes that I had either been a part of or recorded or heard of. And I liked her presence. I liked her knowledge base. So, and that's just one example. So I think to you as a listener, respective of, we're not just bringing anybody to the table to cover a topic.
Right. And we also realize that our listeners aren't just in Central Ohio. And so we want to make sure that this individual is going to be able to help us have good resources for those who are not living in Columbus or close by.
Yeah.
So the podcast that we did earlier today, they're going to be able to give us not only statewide but national resources.
Correct.
So that's what's, it's no use somebody listening to us from across the country if they're, the only thing we're doing is talking about what's happening in CBUS today.
Right. And we've always tried to make them feel welcome and have a great time with them.
Oh, yeah.
Our studio situation, I think, makes it very easy and comfortable to come in and just feel really all of a sudden, wow, we're done.
Yeah.
And we get that reaction from most guests.
Right. Well, and we've tried to meet the guest as we can meet them. So some couldn't join us, and we did it by phone. We have one coming up on video. And so we're also trying to make sure that individual can work with us as they can. so it's convenient for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think COVID's opened up that opportunity for us.
Right.
Well, not the opportunity, but the realization that, okay, it's good. We're okay. We need to do that. But you're right. It opens up opportunities for us that somebody may not be local that we actually need to talk to. So we've got to bring them in via Zoom, via, those alternative ways of doing it. And it gets the job done. So, we were both kind of laughing at this, what topics were the biggest surprise. And we're trying to grasp how to answer that question.
Yes. Not surprise, good or bad. Just a pleasant surprise. Wow, that was cool.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it was sometimes just the answers, the scenarios that came about through the topic.
Yes.
Of just, we were talking with telehealth and just how some people approached being on Zoom.
Yes.
Whether they had clothes on or not, So that was actually, I had to edit quite a bit of that one because we were just laughing so much, and she felt bad about saying something about that, and I won't go into particulars because she did go into particulars, but needless to say, it was, put some clothes on, will you?
Yeah. This is
as a patient. Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or the person behind them didn't realize the camera was on. It's like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So
that was great.
Yeah.
But we just had times where we had opportunities to talk to folks, and their wonderful, bubbly personalities came through. It wasn't just work.
Yeah.
We love Mike Stenziano, our Franklin County auditor. He always does a great job. But boy, we just had a wonderful conversation with him.
Right.
And the big joke was the auditor's office has the strangest combination of duties. And we were trying to figure out what happened. And I think his quip was, well, when the decisions were made, the auditor wasn't there.
Right,
He just got stuck with whatever anybody else didn't want to do.
Right, exactly. So, I think, there weren't tremendous amounts of surprise. It was just that what came out of those interviews.
Right.
That we learned, it's like, whoa, didn't know that. That's interesting.
And we've met new people. So when Courtney came with our buddy Tim Harmon to talk about diversity and inclusion, she was phenomenal. And Tim is always phenomenal. But somebody we didn't know, and just immediate click with her in terms of talking about an issue that's really, really important, but just realistic and driven by getting things done.
Yeah. And another big surprise just came to me. It not a surprise really, but a something I'm proud of, that, our return guests don't even think twice about it.
Right.
So I don't want to say it's a surprise, but it's something like, wow, we just ask them again, they come again.
They're willing to give us their time and their expertise and knowledge.
Right, exactly. And we can now call them friends of the podcast.
Right.
I think it's great. And we were driving and striving for that we need to have core people we can go to for certain topics, because we know they were home runs and that they're willing to come back and talk again a little bit more about, and dive into it a little bit more, and dive into it a little bit more. So that's exciting that we can build those relationships for our audience and for ourselves.
I think too that this really gives us an opportunity. You and I are both in a position in which we can learn things. We know people in the community. If we have a question about something, we know who to ask. Because often individuals are sitting at home and they don't know what they don't know, or they got a question, they have no clue who to talk to. So when we're talking about election issues and how do you get good information on elections, we had our buddy Mark Noose come in from the radio station and just give some phenomenal insight into why it's difficult to get good information about elections. Not who the candidates are, whether we're for or against the issues, but just how do you go about trying to figure it out for yourself based on your beliefs. My friend Sarah Guerrero Doobie, Dr. Doobie, who gave us really good insight into vaccines, not just whether we need the vaccine for COVID, but how medicine has changed over the last 100 years because of vaccines, and how our lives have changed, how our ability to take care of ourselves and our children because of the whole vaccine venue that has happened over the past 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. What we plan for the next year? Well, first of all, we need your input. If we're not covering something that you want us to cover, please let us know. We have a couple of ways of doing that. Email us at hello@lookingforwardourway.com. on social media, just post something, that sort of thing. But we definitely want this to be your podcast.
We're not going to know all the issues.
Right, exactly. Or a go-to person that we should talk to. That would be great to know. We're going to incorporate some video next year. I think we're going to venture into that, especially those that are not local that want to do it video. Why not do video with it? We are not averse to it. It just comes down to we didn't think we were ready.
Right. Well, and it means that Brett and I have to get dressed up.
Yeah, a little bit more than that. We just don't necessarily want to have to do that. But we also know that's another point of ingestion of information.
Right.
The video, some people would like to watch a video, even though it's just 2 or 3 talking heads, but that's what they are in tune to do. So we're going to address that and do a little bit more with that. And coming back to addressing what we haven't so far, we're going to stretch the topics. We need to decide what we're flexible. We're always talking about that. You sent an email to me earlier this morning. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's like, let's explore that.
On procrastination.
Yeah,
why do we procrastinate?
Yeah,
it was a great article, and I'm like, this is me.
And that's kind of where we get these ideas. We see articles, we see ideas come up in the news, and it's like that's kind of a cool idea. Where could we go somewhere with this?
Yes. We have to find the expert on it. But
that's the thing. We're not just going to talk about, hey, you procrastinate too. Oh, darn. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then, as you mentioned too, stretching our network. We, thinking, getting our guests to, really get energized about the podcast and share as much as we can, bring, more things to them so they can talk about the podcast as well. And getting back into technology, I think we're going to experiment with texting. And as a listener, would it be convenient for you to receive a text from us twice a month with the episode to listen to right then?
Right on your phone. Not have to go and find the website.
We've been playing with it behind the scenes. To a very core group of people, core meaning 3 or 4 people. But what it would look like, would it be convenient? Without it being spammy. Of course, that's not what we are about. We're not going to be spammy, but would it be easier for you to listen to an episode if we just text you a link to it and you listen to it right then versus going into your podcast player that might have, if you're like me, 30 different podcasts that you can listen to, and you kind of get lost in the shuffle, and maybe you want to listen to it a little bit more. But we'll set up a mechanism where you can register to get the text.
Right. And it's not that you have to, or that you have to stay on. It's all completely your choice. And yet we don't sell our list, so nobody is going to get your phone number because of us. So it's just a way to make it easy for you to listen.
Yeah, exactly. So your feedback is welcome, for sure. We've always asked that, and we would love that for your reviews. We encourage you to review us on Google My Business. We always have a link. And we'll have a link in this episode on, clicking through and doing that. We've got a few right now, which we're really appreciative of, because it gives us insight on that we're on the right track.
Right.
Pro or con, doesn't matter. But please let us know. But, thanks for being with us so far. We plan on this podcast for a very long time.
Yes,
we did. A very
long
time.
And we've, we've got a year and a little bit into it, and have had some great feedback from people. Folks who have contacted us and saying, we want to be on.
Yeah.
Can you do this? Can you talk? Right. Can you talk about this? Can you include us in? So it's been good so far, but we also want to make sure we stay on the right track. So we want to know that our listeners are listening.
Exactly. And getting hopefully what we're covering is what you want to listen to. And if not, please let us know. We'll try to incorporate and try to figure out a way to cover that, because we know between the two of us, we're missing things. We know we are.
Right. Well, and there are millions of opportunities out there for you to get information.
Right.
Podcasts, out the wazoo pretty much. And so why do you listen to us, and what do you want to hear? Exactly.
Again, our website, lookingforwardourway.com. All the contact information and vital information is in our podcast show notes, as always, and go to the website as well. But we are having a lot of fun putting this together. We hope you're having fun listening to the episodes, and our in for the long run as well too.
Right. We want to wish you a happy, healthy 2022. Can't believe we're saying 2022.
I know.
It's amazing. And that our world opens back up again and we can enjoy each other's time and company together. So, and thank you. Thank you for listening.